My name is Renee Ramirez, and I'm participating in the Collegiate DECA Entrepreneurship Challenge operation. So we were presented with two different opportunities here to either launch a childcare facility in the city or in a more rural area. The city has a population size of around 150,000, and the rural area has a population size of around 35,000 when we take into account the surrounding towns. Now, both of these are potential for great opportunities. There are strengths and weaknesses for both options. Our role was to assess the most strategic and most effective launch plan, and you'll find it as follows. The opportunities for the city launch are, number one, there are guaranteed clients from the first day of opening. Demand is so high in this city that many families are on wait lists, or they're going to family members or hiring private babysitters to care for their children. This high demand allows for us to charge a higher cost per child, which would increase our revenue. And there's also potential for collaboration between facilities. There are many different businesses that are operating in this space. And while that does bring competition, this does bring a potential to collaborate among them, either doing events or other just marketing initiatives to engage our city more and more. The opportunities for the rural launch are a little bit different. Number one, it's a very affordable location. There's better cost control, and that gives us the ability to offer higher quality services as results. We're more flexible in our budgeting. We're closer to customers, and we meet a greater market need. We found that many members of the communities are commuting to the city just to find childcare for their children. So by opening up a location that is closer to them, we're able to capture that market more effectively. Finally, this is an untapped market with potential for expansion without significant competition. Currently, there are no other childcare facilities operating in this location. And if we get in there first, we can just pursue a rapid expansion plan, and either with franchising or with opening up multiple locations as the need allows. And that will allow us to capture a greater share of the market and to continue to grow our business strategically. The risks associated with the city launch, there's very high competition in this market. There are multiple competitors, and while the demand is high, the competition is very difficult in operation. That would have to be a large part of our strategic planning during the entire duration of operating this business. We'd always have to keep an eye on what they're doing and adjust our pricing as they do and so forth. There's also high rent in the city location. And while we'd be able to charge a higher price, the costs would be offset, and we would have less profit as a result from that. This would also limit our flexibility in the business model. This would make us less adaptable to change and hinder us as we try to grow and expand. Finally, there's moderate to low room for expansion in this market. While there's a lot of demand, it's very saturated with competition. And so we would have to be, as the newcomers on the scene, we would have to be incredibly strategic and incredibly focused in our expansionary efforts. The risks associated with the rural launch. Number one, there's a long customer development process here. While the need for childcare is high, we're essentially developing a market for our services. We'd have to build relationships, build trust with families, and that could take a long time depending on the type of people in the community. Number two, there's little to no price precedence and very little support. So we don't have other childcare facilities that are in the area that we can collaborate with, that we can work together with, and that can also vouch for us if need be. And so that would be something we'd have to navigate, being the only childcare facility in that area. While it's a strength, it's also a weakness. Number three, we could have difficulty controlling our costs as we repair our location and prepare it for opening. There are a variety of unforeseen costs that come along with remodeling, especially when we need to keep everything up to code and according to governmental standards. And so that is an area that is a potential risk as we consider launching to this more rural area. We ultimately found that the rural location has the greatest opportunity for long-term growth, and that's because there's little to no competition that would allow us to expand rapidly, whether that's through franchising or opening up multiple locations. It would allow us to meet a high market need, which is one of the most essential requirements for starting and running a business. And it would also allow us to build deeper and long-term relationships with the community members. These are people that are bringing their children to us from infants at sometimes all the way up to 12 or 13 years old. And so if we can capture them early on, we're essentially ensuring that we can continue to serve them and be their go-to for childcare for the next 5, 10 years. And that is an incredible opportunity and an incredible strategic move. Now, we found that in pursuing the rural launch, the success in this market is highly dependent on our customer engagement and customer development. As mentioned previously, we're essentially starting from scratch. While there are families that live in the area that commute, which shows a great market need already, we're going to have to work hard and be strategic about showing that we're trustworthy, showing that we're reputable, showing the strength of our programs, the credibility of our teachers and assistants. And that is something that takes time, and that's something that takes intentionality. We'll have to likely spend more upfront on marketing costs and upfront on our remodeling to ensure that we have a safe and welcoming space. But as mentioned earlier, these upfront costs have the potential to have long-term benefits in the form of longer-term relationships with these clients. This is a brief market analysis of these 2 locations. In the city on the left, you'll see there's a population of 150,000. We've found that people that live in the city often have a fast-paced lifestyle. They have lots to do, whether that's with work or extracurricular activities. They usually live close to work and childcare facilities, but they have minimal support from their extended family due to living in urban areas. And they have children between the ages of 0 to 12 years old. On the right, you'll find our rural analysis. So there's a population of 35,000 when you take into account the 5 surrounding counties with populations of 2,000. Many of these people live in close proximity to their extended family, meaning that they have more support from their families when it comes to finding childcare. They value tight-knit community. They value outdoors and nature, and they have children between the ages of 0 to 12 years old. Finally, they have a commute to work in childcare facilities that is a regular part of their daily routine. As we develop our launch strategy, we'd have to take into account all of these different variables here on the right as we pursue the rural launch. We would want to market our company as a business that cares about families. We would want to partner with local schools to provide support and to develop deeper relationships with our families, as that is what is important to them. So this is a quick breakdown of the costs and benefits associated with the city launch. The costs, number one, there's a large portion of the budget and energy just spent on competing. Running a business is difficult enough without having to worry about competing with another company or multiple other companies. So while it is feasible, this is just something that we would have to take into account and recognize that a large portion of our mental and financial energy will be spent on. Number 2, there's high rent and low profit margins. Especially we'll be working so hard in developing and in running and in ensuring that there's excellent care for these children, and the low profit margins is something that will hinder us in the future as we're trying to grow. This is just a lifestyle business, then great, but if this is a business that is wanting to expand and grow and develop market share, the low profit margins is a pretty high cost to take into account. On the left, the benefits, there's security in our enrollment volume. We already know there's proven demand. We have students and children on wait lists that we can easily pick from and have enrollment and participants from our first day, and that is a very high benefit. And another one is that there's little to no money spent on advertising or marketing. We don't have to develop our customers, they're already there, they're knocking on our doors. For the rural launch, one of the first costs is that a large portion of our budget will be spent on customer development. As mentioned previously, we're showing our credibility. We have to draw our customers in, and while our close proximity to their homes and while our lower pricing due to our flexibility in our budget will be helpful, we can't ignore that we will have to dedicate a portion of our income and our startup capital to this area of the business. Number two, there's just a very practical cost of remodeling our location. This is something that we can't quite control. We can prepare for, but there's always a bit that is unknown in those situations of remodeling. Our benefits is that we have a higher profit margin. This gives us greater flexibility as we are looking to expand and grow. And this is also a strategic move, as the increased profit will allow us to expand faster and capture more of the market share in this rural area before our competitors do. Number two, there's increased flexibility and financial health. Because we aren't weighed down by high overhead and fixed costs, we can invest that extra money into our program, into hiring more qualified teachers, into more activities, into more opportunities for our students, increasing the strength of this program and the attractiveness to our community. And finally, there's the potential for long-term relationships with their community members, and as a result, high customer loyalty. If we can capture these families and develop trust with them from the get-go, then we have guaranteed customers for the next 5-10 years, and that is a very coveted thing as we're developing a business. Consumer preferences change, obviously, but in this industry specifically, we have an advantage in this area that children need care, whether they're infants or whether they're 12 years old. The care changes, but they still need supervision and a caring environment, and that's what we aim to provide. This is a SWOT analysis for this city launch. On our strength, there's a high demand. There's a high cost of services, meaning we can charge more for our care. Weaknesses, we have low profit margins and high competitions. These are very important things to take into account as we're launching a business for the first time. For opportunities, we have guaranteed clients and little to no advertising. We don't have to go out and develop our customers. They'll come to us. And finally, we'll have consistent enrollment. For our threats, there's an inability to develop market share. We'll have to really work to carve out and to differentiate ourselves from our competitions, and that is a very real threat. And we can have difficulty establishing reputation. We'll essentially we'll be the new kid on the block, if you will. We'll have to show that we're credible, that we can compete with these other childcare facilities that have been around much longer than we have. For the rural launch, this is an untapped market. That's a huge strength of this decision. We can offer affordable pricing, which is something that makes us highly competitive and attractive to the community. And there's no competition. We don't have to compete or even think right now about how we can differentiate ourselves from the facility next door, the facility down the block, because they aren't there. All we have to focus on is providing the best care at the best price. Our weaknesses, there are higher startup costs. We're going to be working on remodeling this location, and so that brings a variety of costs. And we'll also have to develop our customer base, which will require higher levels of investment from the beginning. And another thing to note is that there's no precedence for pricing. So we'll have to be intentional about how we market ourselves. We don't want to shock the community by charging too much, but we don't want to undersell ourselves, as we are providing a very valuable service. Opportunities, there's an opportunity for rapid expansion and franchising, which is just a very strategic move as we look at the surrounding towns and areas in the high need for childcare. And our threats is that there's low customer engagement and potential for competitors. While currently there are no competitors in this market, there's always the possibility that other people will decide to move to these rural areas and also offer childcare services. And so that is a threat. And that is one that we can mitigate through our rapid expansion that is made possible through greater financial flexibility. Thus concludes the Collegiate DECA Entrepreneurship Challenge Operations Childcare Location Case Study. Thank you very much.